of the Lord in the heart. And this is speaking about how Lord Brahma meditated upon the Virat Rupa, and then he regained his lost consciousness by appeasing the Lord, and he was able to rebuild the creation as it was before. So, like at the end of Lord Brahma's day, the entire creation is completely destroyed, and then Lord Brahma recreates it. He recreates this. This is one of the partial annihilations that takes place in the universe. And when Lord Brahma wakes up again, like he has to remember all the potency that he has in order for him to continue his service. You know, Srila Prabhupada writes here, the example cited herein of Sri Brahmaji is one of forgetfulness. Brahmaji is the incarnation of the mundane attributes of the Lord, you know, and he is the incarnation, the mode of passion. He's one of the guna avatars. And Prabhupada writes a beautiful material creation. I thought it's a very interesting point that he says beautiful material creation, because usually in this material world, when things are created, they're very beautiful. You know, like when the building is newly created, it's very beautiful. When so many things are newly created, like, you know, even the baby when it's newly born, unless it's deformed, the baby is very beautiful when it's born. Like the skin is so soft, the eyes are so nice, and the hair is so soft, and all these things. You know, it's very very beautiful. So many things when they're first created, they're very beautiful. And we can also see the body, like, you know, even in its growing stages, you know, from the time of birth, from boyhood to youth, you know, or, you know, for a man or for a woman, is also the body is very beautiful. It's the action of creation. It's still in that creating process, you know, that the body is going on, especially if one lives a pretty healthy life. We can see the natural beauty like this. It comes about because at that point of time, at that point, the mode of passion is there, and he's empowered. The creation is actually beautiful in the beginning. That's the nature of something, how it is in the beginning. But then, like, you know, as time goes on, that beauty and all these things go away, especially if they're not maintained properly. But this forgetfulness of the living entity is actually nothing new. It's nothing extraordinary. Actually, like, so we all forget so many things. We're forgetting so many things so many times. We forget to do all the things that we're asked to, even if we make a note. That's why Ian, like, I remember being with my spiritual master, he was telling us to do something, and then we said, oh yes, Guru Maharaj, he said, make a note, take a pen, write it down, you know. Write down, someone's telling you something, write it down on your phone, write it down, make sure you don't forget, because the tendency of the living entity, especially in Kali Yuga, is that he's prone to forgetfulness. Prayan alpaisha shabhya kalavasman yuge janaha mandasya manda matayo manda bhagya hipadrataha. That, you know, we are prayan alpayusha shabhya, that we have short lives, we have poor memories. You know, we have really, really bad memories in this Kali Yuga, especially those of us, you know, who have been subjected to this civilization of sense gratification, or been influenced by this civilization of sense gratification. The memory aspect is very, very poor. It's very, very low. It's really bad, actually. And the more one indulges in sense gratification, the more one loses his fine memory, actually. You know, like, we can see the more one indulges in sex life, the duller they become. The more one loses the vital potency of a male, the more a male loses that, the duller he becomes. I've known so many people who are very, very sharp, especially like growing up. I remember being in the same school grades with them, like they were, you know, Brahmana boys, you know, by caste, born in a in family of really, really intelligent people. And, like, you know, I remember being in first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade with them, and their memories were so fine, their intelligence was so sharp, and they were able to, like, you know, outdo so many people materially speaking because of their material intelligence. But the minute they started, their innocence got corrupted. The minute the innocence got corrupted, and and they were introduced into this world of degradation via the internet, via bad association and all these things. And the more they indulged in these activities, the duller they became, the more unhappier they became. The same child who was very bright in 7th grade was so dumb and dull in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. And now most of their life is pretty much a mess. They like especially where their potency was to where they are, because already our memories are so bad, but the more we indulge in sense gratification, we will not be able to focus on anything actually. Bhoga Ishvarya Prashaktanam Taya Pahita Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samadho Na Vijayate. The more one indulges in Bhoga and Aishwarya, the more one indulges in sense gratification and the process of accumulating wealth, the more one indulges in these things, the more one will lose the ability to focus on things properly. That's just how it is. And even if we don't indulge in sense gratification, still the tendency, Travis is here, make sure the door is open. So if the intelligence is constantly polluted, or even if it's not polluted, even Lord Brahma, our body is made of earth, right? Like different living entities. Our body is made of earth, and different living entities in different parts of the world, their body may be made of different elements. But Lord Brahma's body is made completely of intelligence. The Brahma Samhita states that Lord Brahma's body is made of intelligence. Can we even fathom a body being made of intelligence? It's so subtle, it's so fine, it's so amazing. And yet even Lord Brahma forgot. How is that possible? How is that possible? Because the potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is much greater than we can imagine. It's much greater than we can imagine. The potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is so powerful, and we are so insignificant. Abrahma bhavana lokan punanavrati norjana. That all the way from Lord Brahma to the most insignificant ant, we are all subjected to repeated birth and death in this material world. And repeated birth and death means forgetfulness. We forget so many things, and it's the potency of the Supreme Lord is to, give this forgetfulness. Is to give this forgetfulness. Otherwise, we'll be tortured so much. And I'll get more into this, forgetfulness aspect of it. But we read in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Lord Brahma, his primary potency is to create, and how elevated of a being he is. He has unlimited capacity for sense gratification. He can literally create anything that he wants for his sense gratification. But he's still so controlled. He's still so... You can offer some of those for the other devotees also. The orange, I know some devotees may like. We can see that, the Lord Brahma, he's empowered by the Supreme Lord to create and do all these things, and in spite of having such an elevated birth, he is the son of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. He is Aja, he's born from the navel of the Supreme Lord, he's born. And he's such a special birth. Still, even Lord Brahma has a potency to forget. Why? Because it is not such an easy thing to overcome the effects of the modes of material nature. It's not a very easy thing to become a control of the senses. It's not a very easy thing, because we're in this material world for that reason. We have this tendency of being infected by false ego, and because we have a tendency of being inflicted by this false ego, this potency of false ego, the main function of false ego is that it makes us forget our real identity. And because we forget our real identity, we start identifying with everything that we're not related to. And the main thing that we forget is that we're servants of Krishna. Jiva Swarupa Krishna Tidas. Krishna Tatashta Shakti Beda Bed Prakash. That the main function of the living entity, the whole reason the living entity is even in existence is for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. But forgetting this, we go around believing in this myth of freedom. We think we are free. We think we're free to do this. We think we're free to do that. We have so much freedom to do whatever we want. We could go outside and buy whatever we want, and eat whatever we like and drink whatever we like, and there'll be no repercussions. But that's not the case. Because all these things that we think, I can eat whatever I want, I can drink whatever I want, I don't want anyone to tell me what to do, I'm my own man, I'm my own woman, etc., etc. The more we think like this, the more we are going to be, bound up by all these other things made of matter, all these other things. They will own us. We've given this example so many times, so many Sunday feast classes, that the cigarette, although it's a small thing and it's completely dead, it controls and ruins and destroys and kills the lives of so many people. Why? It's because people think they're free to do whatever they want, A person addicted to drugs can think he's free to do whatever he likes. Then why doesn't he stop taking drugs? I remember being in the association of people who were really into smoking marijuana. And then when people who wouldn't smoke marijuana would accuse them of, bro, like you're addicted to smoking pot. No, pot doesn't let you be addicted to it. Then they say, okay, you're not addicted to pot, then why don't you stop? Oh, because I don't want to. I don't need to. Like this, the illusion of freedom is there, but the truth is they're addicted to it. That's the truth. And the more one realizes how insignificant they are, the more they'll actually be able to get fixed in the process of becoming freed from this entanglement of this material world. And over here, Srila Prabhupada is making a very amazing statement that the more one meditates upon this beautiful Virata Rupa, on this universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the more their tendency to forget is removed and their pure consciousness is revived. That's a very important thing to understand. We have the tendency to forget so many things. Now, this is the technique, right? This is the technique. How do we always remember the orders of the spiritual master? We always remember the orders of the spiritual master by meditating upon them. If you're not able to meditate upon them, at least we can meditate upon the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. At least when we're drinking water, we can think of the universal form. Rasoham apsukonteya. Prabhashmi Shurya Yoho. That, okay, wow, this taste is Krishna. I guess that's not the universal form, but still. Prabhashmi Shurya Yoho. The taste of water is Krishna. The light of the sun is Krishna. The sun itself is the eyes of Krishna. The moon is the eye of Krishna. Yachak Shireshi Savita Sakalagrahanam Raja Samassa Suramurti Rasheshi Tejaha Yasyagnaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakra Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. You have some strength to lift something. Balam balavatam chaham. Krishna is giving you that strength. You have the tendency to do so many things. Krishna, you have the tendency, if you see people gambling, you understand Krishna is the greatest gamble. Krishna is the greatest gambler. Of the gamblers, he is gambling, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. We can see so many things actually if we read, and this is a really important point to meditate upon and chew upon so much, because the more we think about this point, the more we'll actually realize how much Krishna is around us all the time. Krishna is there in the impersonal feature, Krishna is there in the localized feature also. We can think about it even when we look at the trees. Wow, the trees are the hairs of the universal form. When we look at when we look at streams, when we look at the streams of rivers flowing down, we think they're the veins of the universal form. And by thinking about this, we realize how insignificant we actually are. What's the whole purpose of meditating on the universal form is to understand this point. Mamai vamsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha manashyasthani indriyani prakritim sthani karshiti. And when we meditate upon the universal form, we realize that we are eternal parts and parcel to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what we are. We're eternal parts and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because we're eternal parts and parcel of the Supreme Lord, but we're forgetting our original situation and our original constitution, we are suffering with the mind and the other senses. We're suffering with our senses, we're suffering with our mind, we're suffering with all these things, and they're constantly tormenting us at every given point of time. At every given point of time, our mind and our senses are dragging us away from the ultimate goal of life. But by meditating upon the universal form, the Supreme Lord, then the tendency to forget will actually go away. We can think here, we can sit here thinking we are so great, we're so wonderful, we are so amazing. But then the more we meditate upon the universal form of the Supreme Lord, the more we can understand how insignificant we actually are. How insignificant. Our Ishvara Bhava will naturally reduce. Our ahankara will actually reduce. Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashaha ahankara vimudhatma kartahamiti manyate. A bewildered fool who's extremely foolish actually thinks that he is a doer, but actually the person who, the material modes of nature just tossing us around here and there. We are absolutely not in control. We think we're so great, so what if we're just thrown in the middle of the ocean by ourselves? What will happen to our greatness? We're so great, let's go stand in the middle of a hurricane. We're so great, let's go stand in the middle of a moving truck. And on the road when there's a speeding truck coming our way, what happens to our greatness? It all goes away. It all goes away. Everyone is competing, who is the goat? Who's the greatest of all times, who's the goat? Krishna is the goat. Krishna is the greatest of all time. There's no one greater than Krishna. And you want to really compare yourself to really someone who really does. Compare yourself to our acharyas. Compare yourself to Krishna. Then you'll see where we really are. We're nowhere. We're nobody. We're nothing. What are we doing? Nothing of any real significance, actually. So by remembering, by meditating upon the Virat Rupa, the revival of our pure consciousness and counteraction the tendency to forget our eternal relationship with the Lord can follow simultaneously. The Brahma Samhita says, Sa nityo nitya sambandha prakritisya cha paraivasa. That the living entity and Krishna are bound. Yelson, you can stand up, please. Yeah, the living entity and Krishna are bound with a knot of eternal kinship. We have an eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this is there. The Supreme Lord actually reminds us of these things in so many ways, shapes, and forms. And this entire tendency to forget is actually present, and the Supreme Lord actually gives us that benediction. It actually is a benediction in one sense for the tendency to forget. And I'm going to send you something. You could display this on the okay. So where can I send it to you, Nally? Like Facebook Messenger or something? Yeah. Okay. So in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hridhi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha vedesha sarvair ahameva vedyaha vedanta krit vedavid eva chaham. That, from Krishna comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. He's the knower of the Vedas, he's the compiler of the Vedas, and he's the end goal of the Vedas. That is who Krishna is. So we can understand from this point that from Krishna is coming remembrance, from Krishna is coming knowledge, and from Krishna is coming forgetfulness. And the reason all these things are there, these things are there because Krishna helps one actually function in this material world. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a very, very amazing insight in this regard. Wow, you really? Okay. And he helps us understand why Krishna does these things. Why is Krishna actually giving us this entire, what's his function? What's the use of remembrance? What's the use of knowledge? What's the use of forgetfulness? Krishna gives us all these things. And we can pull up this quote. You can go to your inbox. And you'll find over there, that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments where he says that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further explains Krishna's thoughts. Can you copy paste that or do something? This is actually pretty impractical. He explains Krishna's thoughts. Huh?
Click the messenger.
Okay, there you go. So.
Yeah, do that. Just do what you did. Of the open message.
So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur helps us understand Krishna's thoughts. What are Krishna's thoughts? Our acharyas are so great that they can understand how Krishna is thinking. Here he's saying, just Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur further explains Krishna's thoughts. He says, just as the fire of digestion is within the stomach, I am situated in the hearts of all moving and non-moving beings as a principle of intelligence. Krishna is present in us is a principle of intelligence. Indeed, from me, the intelligence principle comes remembrance of things once experienced, forgetfulness and perception born from contact of the senses with their sense objects. Having thus described how he helps the living entities in a bound condition, he next states the words, beginning by all Vedas, how he helps them attain liberation. He further goes on to say, thus Krishna serves. Krishna is serving each and every living entity from within his heart by activating remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. If one were to remember each occurrence, especially the miseries experienced throughout his unlimited births, he would be unable to function. That is a potency, that's a forgetfulness potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that he helps us forget all the miseries that we had undergone in all our previous births. And Krishna is present as an intelligence principle, And the most important thing that Krishna helps us forget, especially when we take to Krishna consciousness, is Krishna helps us forget our material desires. We have so many material desires. We have a desire to do this, we have a desire to do that. Especially when we come to Krishna consciousness, we have all these desires. But Krishna is so kind, Krishna is so powerful. Krishna actually knows what we need to forget in order for us to advance in our Krishna consciousness. If we examine our lives, 10 years ago, 1 year ago even, what were our desires? What were our aspirations? What was our goal? What did we want to do? What happened to those goals? What happened to those ambitions? Krishna made us forget all these things. Why? And he's helping us remember his lotus feet. That's the point. Krishna is helping us remember his lotus feet. Mukunda mudna pranipati yache bhavantam ekantam iyantam artam avishmritis tva charanaravinде bhave bhave me tu bhavat prasadat. That, Srila Kulashekar Alvar is praying to Krishna that Mukunda Murna Pranipatayache, that my dear Lord Mukunda, I'm offering you my most humble and respectful obeisances. And I only have one prayer and one desire. Bhavantam ekantam iyantam artham. And what is that prayer and what is that desire? Avismiti tvat charanaravinде. That no matter which birth I take, no matter where I am, no matter which body I am, I only have this one request, that I never forget your lotus feet. Bhave bhave me tu bhavat prasadat. That in this life, you please give me this one benediction, not just in this life, life after life, that I never forget your lotus feet. That is a prayer that one actually makes. And in this purport, Prabhupada is speaking about how the kingdom of God is unlimited. Therefore, the number of assisting hands of the Lord is also unlimited. So Prabhupada is saying that, we need to have unlimited amount of book distributors to distribute as many of Srila Prabhupada's books as possible. He's saying we need unlimited hands because Krishna is present in every nook and cranny, and because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unlimited. He has unlimited amount of service that needs to be done for him. Because of the unlimited service, that we can engage unlimited amount of living entities in this process of bringing them closer to the lotus feet of Krishna. We can counteract all the false egoism that of us thinking with this body and this, that, and this and that by simply engaging in the service of the previous acharyas. We can forget, all our hang-ups. We can forget all our egotism. We can forget all these things simply by engaging in the service of the previous acharyas, simply by doing this very simple thing. We simply make it our life's goal to somehow or the other serve the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. We simply make it our life's goal to somehow or the other give our life to this book distribution mission of Srila Prabhupada. Then we will actually be able to get rid of all this false egoism. And then we can actually be liberated. And what does it mean to be liberated? Liberation is never inaction, but service without human mistakes. We can actually perform an activity which is free of mistakes. And that activity is devotional service. And book distribution is the purest form of Sankirtan. Even the so-called mistakes of a book distributor will be nullified if they are doing it selflessly for the service or for the pleasure of the spiritual master and Krishna. So it's a very unique time. The marathon is in 2 days. That's not a joke. The marathon is in 2 days. Things are going to get real intense, real fast. And it's going to be like we're going straight down all the way till January 1st. No excuses. The mind, the head, the tail, the nose. This person said this, that person said that. This is being done too much, this is being done too less. All these things will become completely immaterial because we will actually be performing service without human mistakes. So the best way to do it is to completely fix our mind on this one thing. If we do not deviate our mind for a moment from Srila Prabhupada's instruction to expand book distribution, then that's actually real liberation. We don't have to wait for this. We don't have to wait for that. We don't have to do all these things. Srila Prabhupada writes in one purport. I hope I can pull it up. He writes it in this purport in the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. If I'm not able to pull it up in just a minute, I'll just paraphrase it. Anyway, I'm unable to pull it up. But Prabhupada says that this Krishna consciousness movement is an invitation. Okay, I think I got it. Anyway, no, I didn't. Okay, this Krishna consciousness movement is basically an invitation for all young men and women to come and sacrifice their life. And he gives this in the purport where Dadichi Muni sacrifices his body in order for his bones to be used as a weapon to kill the demon Vritrasura. And Prabhupada says that this Krishna consciousness movement is an invitation for all young men and women to come and surrender their lives for the great purpose of reviving God consciousness in the entire world. So we are inviting everyone, all young and old women and men, to please come, give their life to this Prabhupada book distribution revolution. This is the most important thing that we can focus our minds upon. And by focusing our minds upon this, our tendency to forget, our tendency to slack off, all the other anarthas, all of them will be completely nullified. If we simply focus on this one thing, and all the other things will actually come about just from this one thing. We should make it our life. We should actually mold our life to every year simply revolved around the Prabhupada Marathon. Every year. That our life, our entire year should be planned from one marathon to another marathon to another marathon to another marathon. One should not ask how many years have you been in Krishna consciousness. One should ask how many marathons of Srila Prabhupada have you engaged your body and mind in. That's the real question. If we simply base our mind, if we simply focus our mind on a marathon, like yes, okay, it's been 3 marathons, 5 marathons, 10 marathons, 11 marathons, then we'll actually be able to fix our mind completely on this. The entire year is actually a preparation for the marathon to take off. And we've always experienced this. We always think that, this just happens during the marathon. But what usually happens for us, we've seen this happen with the Saptarishi, we've seen this happen with the volume of books being distributed every year. We were actually running through some statistics, and we were actually seeing that our book distribution has increased by 42.5% since 2016. 42.5% every year since 2016. It's not a joke, And the reason that goes on is that the same momentum from the marathon just flows into the year. And then book distribution just goes to one level. And when we think we couldn't do more, then Krishna empowers us to do more and do more and do more. All we have to do is simply surrender. And when we surrender more and more to the instruction of the spiritual master, we will experience our intelligence expanding. Our intelligence will expand, and we'll actually be able to see things and perform book distribution in ways and means that we could never do before. Then where is there a question of forgetfulness of our eternal identity? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives us a recommendation that we need to be bound. We need to actually become bound. We actually need to be a slave of the 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 person who's actually not free, who's actually free, who's the only person who's actually free. That's our goal, that we want to become a slave of the slave of the slave of that person who's actually free, and that person is Krishna. And we become very, very close to the previous acharyas by giving our life to this book distribution movement. Just do this one thing. Focus your entire year on the Prabhupada Marathon. Understand that the whole purpose of the year is to give ourselves fully in this time. This is a great time of the year. It's a great time to completely absorb ourselves in this. I'm sure everyone's experiencing great ecstasy just labeling the books and tying them. That itself, just being in the zone of doing that is really awesome. Then what to speak of being in the zone of just getting them out. Just get them out, no more excuses, no more putting things down, no more infighting. Now it's for outfighting. Let's start fighting outside, let's get into it, let's go out there, let's start fighting with our minds out there on the streets and pump out as many books as possible. Every year we should challenge ourselves to do more. So we should all come together as all one army, serving under the same commander, Srila Prabhupada, and his representative, His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami. He's pushing all of us to do more and more books. So, as soldiers in the same army, following the same orders, we need to move forward, march on, and destroy the enemy. Let's wreak havoc like we've never done before. So, I'll end the class here. Any questions or comments? Nothing? Yeah.
So, April 27, 1969, Srila Prabhupada has a room conversation where a devotee is asking, question is that if we've never been with Krishna, if we've never been in Krishna Loka, how is it that we start remembering his pastimes and his form? Prabhupada, you remember Krishna's pastimes by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. You can hear Krishna's pastime. That you can remember. Devotee. But how can we remember if we've never known them before? Prabhupada, how can you remember? Devotee, if we have never known it. Prabhupada, you can know it by hearing from Srimad Bhagavatam. Why are we citing so many scriptures? Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, just to remember. Just to remember. Devotee, just to remember? Prabhupada, something you forget. But I tell you repeatedly, you hear, you remember. Is it not? Hear something you have forgotten completely. And I remind you constantly. Then you don't remember? Devotee, yes. But I don't understand how is it that we forgot it? How can we remember? Prabhupada, forgot, you forgot. That is your nature. You forget so many things. You cannot remember what you were doing exactly at this time yesterday. Can you remember immediately? Forgetfulness is our nature. We are very minute, therefore we are subject to the quality of forgetfulness. Just like Arjuna. Arjuna was asking Krishna, how can I believe that you told this philosophy of Bhagavad Gita to Vivaswan? He said that first of all, I told to Vivaswan. So in reply to that question, Krishna said, both you and I had many, many births before, but you have forgotten, I remember. That is the difference between the Supreme Lord and ourselves. He does not forget. He remembers everything, past, present, and future, all, but we forget. That is the difference between God and the living entity. We are subjected to forgetfulness, so we forget. Again, if it is reminded, we remind. That is our nature. So at the present moment, we are forgetful of our eternal relationship with Krishna. And then, by good association, by constant chanting, hearing, remembering, we again revoke our old consciousness. That is called Krishna consciousness. So forgetfulness is not wonderful. It is natural. We forget. But if we keep constant touch, we may not forget. Therefore, this association of Krishna consciousness, devotees, and constant repetition of the chanting, scripture, that will keep us intact without forgetting. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha didavrataha. We have to continue the service constantly. Then we shall not forget. Forgetfulness is not wonderful. That is our nature. That is our nature. And that is the difference between ourselves and God. God does not forget. We forget. We are claiming, some of us foolishly claiming, I am God, but I forget. God does not forget. Therefore, I am not God. Is it clear? That is the difference between the living Jiva and Shiva, God. He does not forget. So, Prabhupada continues to kind of emphasize the same thing. Anyways, a little more. In the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Vedaham samatitani. I know everything of this past, present, and future. Everything. But we do not know. We have forgotten. In our daily life, in our childhood, so many things we did. We don't remember. But our parents may remember that as a child we did this. So forgetfulness is our nature. But if we keep constant touch with Krishna, then he will give us remembrance.
Jai. Yeah. Anything else?
So the point is that, we tend to forget, and, we have to be in the association of devotees to not forget.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing too, like when we were having a phone call with Shyam Sundar Prabhu, he made this point that feminism is the reason we're in this material world. And he said that, and I kind of forgot it, and then again when he said, oh yeah, how did I forget, so many things, we forget, but the more and more we're reminded, the more and more it's really good, repetition of good things is actually desirable. Yes.
Prabhu, we're hearing a lot about the Virat Rupa, and you made an interesting point that, if you can't meditate on the instructions of the spiritual master, you can at least meditate on the Virat Rupa, and you're mentioning the taste of water, and the strength of the strong. Like those who tend to lean towards like the impersonal conception of God, it seems a lot more difficult because they just meditate on Prabhupada's instructions. He says, just read books, read my books, live by my books. Like it's so easy, but
Yeah.
meditate on all these other. It's very difficult.
Yeah, it is, but if we just look at this, we realize, then we think of the instructions immediately, and of course the easiest thing is to just focus on the previous such as Lord Chaitanya's mercy, that's Srila Prabhupada's mercy on us, He's made it very easy for us.
The thing is, the living entities find it difficult to surrender. The process is not difficult. But they find, for them it's difficult. Therefore, they lean towards the impersonal conception rather than the personalistic conception. Even though the personal conception is much easier, they don't want to surrender. That's the problem.
Yeah. Anything else? Mataji's? Okay, all right. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Just reading this last message from His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, where he says that now it's more appropriate now than ever before. May devotees at Krishna Life Alana continue to distribute thousands of Srila Prabhupada's books for His divine pleasure. Signed, Bhakti Vikas Swami, Canterbury, July 31st, 2022. So let's make this a reality. Do thousands of Bhakti stacks daily, hopefully. Okay? Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhya Kripasanabhyo Cha Patitanam Pavane Bhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Parivadatu Jano.